If you grew up in Morocco or in Tunisia or in Libya sometimes, or in Niger or Chad, and you are used to Malik, and you travel for business to Kuwait, and you hear Malik Yawmiddin, so what's going on here? The man made a mistake. And of course, if you don't know, if you never heard it, and if you studied it, Malik, why would you think that he's not? Okay? And I have a book, if you ever come to my basement, that is 9 volumes of the Qira'at of the Quran. So, Amarna from Amir made him a leader. Amarna means order, to order someone, to command something. Wow, what's going on here? So 2 different meanings. But when you study the whole verse, the whole context, actually you are intended to have 2 meanings within 1 word instead of repeating yourself in 2 different ways. You see what the wisdom is? Be as concise as possible. Within 1 word, you have 2 or 3, and sometimes, believe it, 14, 15, you can go as far as 25 meanings of 1 word. So it's a discipline by itself. And some of you who might go online, you can download some of these Qur'an, like Abdul Basit Abdul Samad, the very well-known reciter. He does some chapters. If you must do the whole chapters of the Quran, that would be, my God, days of recitations combined. But he went over some chapters and did all the Qur'at of them. Okay. Now, when I do sit like this to teach, I would be doing injustice to you and to me if I only give you 1 qira'ah, 1 reading, and 1 meaning of that word. I'll be doing injustice to you, giving you only access to 1 meaning out of 25, or out of 13, or out of 14. Do injustice to you, injustice to the meaning of the verse, and the message it wants to contribute and give you. You see where I'm coming from? So that's what Qur'an is all about. No time to talk about more than just. There are etiquettes by which you read the Qur'an. For example, we are told that before you read the Qur'an, you're supposed to say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You're supposed to say A'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-Rajim. I seek refuge in God, the merciful, from the cursed Satan. So you come into the presence of God. This is God's word, and God is about to talk to you. And if God's about to talk to you, you're going to be in God's presence fully, spiritually, mentally, and physically. So you sort of cast out any earthly reality and come to this divine presence of peace and love and compassion and learning. So I seek refuge in God the merciful from the cursed devil or Satan. I'm going to really listen to God, focus on God, telling me what God wants me to know. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassion. So I'm going to read this text with passion, with compassion, with love, with ease, with peace, as well. We have few seats. That's good actually. That we're crowded. That means we did well, or Nazir did well.
We have plenty of open seats.
If there's seats in the middle, we really appreciate it if you all just go all the way down.
Yeah, you can, like right here, we can have 2 open seats if people scoot down.
When the music stops. When the music stops. Get it.
Yes. We're dealing with its history, in the stages of its revelation, how it came about, how it was combined, how it came to be in the way it looks now. Understanding it means it covers all the causes of revelation, called in Arabic asbab al-nuzul. What's that? One of the worst mistakes Muslims make is that they take the Quran out of context. The Quran was revealed in Arabic to address a specific social, political, economic context. It was addressing women the way they were in Arabia, men the way they were in Arabia, Jews of Arabia, the Christians of Arabia. See where I'm coming from? Are you with me? So if you find a verse in the Quran, say, Imam Hindi, but this is not how we Christians think. You're right. I know. I'm not talking about the 17th century Christianity. I'm talking about the 6th century Arabian Christianity. You see the difference? So when people come to me, Imam Hindi, and there are books about this, the Quran does not make sense. It talks about the Christianity that we don't know, and therefore it's a false book. No. Christianity has evolved in the last 2,000 years. And the Catholic Church is not the Protestant Church, not the Episcopalian and the Presbyterian. Christians here know this. See where I'm coming from? It addresses specific social, political, economic context where people practice things in a specific way. What some Muslims do is they take the verses out of context, say, well, let's now make sense of it without understanding that context. So why does the Quran say this about women or about men or about that relationship? Is the Quran being negative against the Jews or positive against the Jews? Can you understand the specific context? See where I'm coming from? That's what I mean. It's called asbab al-nuzul. And when you don't understand the context, the social political context, you don't understand the verse. In a way, the context informs how you understand and interpret the text. That's what I mean. So when we do tafsir, as scholars of tafsir, that's one of the very first things we do. Was, okay, where was this verse revealed, if you will? In Mecca or in Medina? Or was it in the first year of Mecca or the third year? It makes a difference. Is it in the last year before the Prophet died or in the first year after he went to Medina? So the context is different. And I'll give you specific examples that will make you want to spin and think how people misunderstand the Quran in so many ways. So the acknowledgement of Mecca and Medina relations, I think I'll give you one example just to drive the point home. When I was in Pakistan one day and someone asked me at the end of my lecture, Imam Yahya, what do you do when you don't have anything to do? I don't know if I ever not have anything to do. You need to ask my wife about that. But if I don't have anything to do, I like to listen to music and do other things. I mentioned them. And this guy stood up and said, Astaghfirullah al-Azim. Muslims here know what that means. May God forgive your sin. You listen to music, and music is haram. It's prohibited in Islam. Okay, thank you for teaching me, my brother. How do you, why does he said, it's very well, it's in the Quran, it says music is haram. I asked him to recite that verse for me. And the verse says, يَشْتَرُونَ لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. They literally, it means they purchase the distraction, they purchase, literally, they purchase something that is distracting in how they talk, so that they may lead the people astray. Literally. So word by word, without going into context. Purchase something that distracts people in the way you talk, that you may lead the people astray. So the first thing I told him, my brother, the Arabic word for music is musiqa. So let's recite the word again, the verse. يَشْتَرُونَ لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. The word musiqa is not there. So that's number one refutation of your argument. So it's not even talking about musiqa. No, Imam, maybe he's talking about musiqa metaphorically. That's possible too. My second point was to him, this verse is Meccan verse, meaning it was revealed in Mecca, not in Medina. Why is that important? Meccan verses for 13 years never ever addressed law in any way, shape, or form. Meccan verses did not tell Muslims what is halal, what's acceptable, and what's haram, prohibited. Never. There's no verse in Meccan verses that address halal and haram, acceptable and unacceptable. Meccan verses talk about theology, creed, and what do you do to increase your faith. So obviously this verse is not telling you anything is halal or haram, acceptable or unacceptable. That's very simple discussion. So what's the story, the context? The context is this. In the early years of Mecca, the Prophet used to sit next to the Kaaba, the sacred house, to invite the people who would travel through Mecca to Islam. So what would he do? He would recite the Qur'an, so people can listen to it. Two very well-known leaders of Mecca did not like that. So they actually went and paid poets who had very beautiful voices to go and stand next to the Prophet and read poetry in a very loud voice so they can distract people from listening to Muhammad. You see the context now? The context has nothing to do with the music, whether it's acceptable or not unacceptable. It is a verse that was revealed in Mecca to address a specific circumstance, a specific reality that existed with the Prophet in Mecca. Now the problem is if you go and Google the word music in Islam, every Muslim scholar, almost 60% would mention that verse as the reason why music is haram. And I said, no, music is not haram. Not a single verse in the Qur'an that anyone can ever interpret to mean that music is haram. You see where I'm coming from? It's quite very simple stuff. Very simple stuff. But that's what I mean by that context and by Mecca and Medina. Another example, for example, the Qur'an is very positive, very positive. Again, I said 2/3 of the Qur'anic narrative is about the Jews and the Christians. And the Qur'an is very positive about the Jews and the Christians. But people refer to these two specific verses that sound or seem to be negative about the Jews and the Christians. You see, the Quran says that Jews and Christians are. Pull it down, please pull it down. If you're talking about almost 4,000 verses that are positive about the Jews and the Christians, you cannot discard that and take only two verses that may sound to be negative. Okay? Number two, let's talk about these two specific verses. These were revealed in Medina, not in Mecca. And therefore, they don't give us paradigms. These are verses that deal with specifics, specific realities that happened in Medina, about which people did not know what to do, meaning how to act, how to do something that would be halal, would be kosher, if you will, would be acceptable morally and ethically. So there are specific two verses that deal with specific two realities that I will deal with when I talk about, maybe I'll talk about it now. Am and khas, general and specific. So the general verses that deal with Judaism and Christianity are here, of how we're supposed to deal with them, and we'll talk about that later in the day. Khas is specific. It could be specific to a place, a specific to a name of a person. So there was a conflict at one point happened in Medina in which some specific Jews were involved, that the Quran addresses. How do we know? We know by language. If I tell you the Arabic word for Jews, like also in Hebrew, Yahud. If I say a Jew vis-a-vis the Jew, if I tell you, give me the book, vis-a-vis give me a book, two different realities. Give me the book in a book, you're talking about in general. Give me the book, is a specific book that you need. So these two verses use the al, which means the. And that makes the verses khas, specific, and not am, general. And therefore these two verses do not offer us a general guideline of how Muslims and Jews are supposed to interact. The very specific cases about specific individuals who acted in a specific way, and Muslims said, so they came to Muhammad and said, listen, the Qur'an tells us we have to be respectful and this and this and this, but these two individuals betrayed and lied and this and this. What do we do? The Qur'an is that specific experience. Am I making sense here? Mm-hmm. The problem with Muslims is that they who don't know khas and am, specific and general, or when they read a translation that does not know this stuff, God help us all. This is where really the problem comes from, by the way. Misreading the text, the context, misreading language, misreading what the Quran is trying to. Now, these specific individuals, we have the names, by the way. However, they were known by their faith, not by their names. So the Quran addressed them by how they were known, not because they were